Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome. Today, I have officially decided to launch my daily lives where I just come on, teach, talk, and just be my authentic self. Because what I started realizing is we have so many people in the world that are going through things and they don't know how to handle them mentally, emotionally, and even physically. And what is happening is all of these things are manifesting into sicknesses. They're manifesting into depression and anxiety and just feeling overwhelmed in life. And so I want to just start contributing my part to helping serve so much of these things. And today I wanted to chat about relationships. For the past few months, I have been really, focusing on my relationships with everybody, my friends, my family, my marriage, my children, just like trying to understand what it is that individuals need because me being in the mental health world for over 25 years and being a teacher and a spiritual teacher and teaching other individuals how to heal themselves, what I have discovered out of all the thousands of people I've helped over these last 25 years is that people want to feel seen, heard, understood, loved, and appreciated. That's all people want. And that is the common complaint, no matter what people have gone through. And I have heard things that people have gone through that you're just standing there looking at them like, how did you make it through it? Just in awe of the fact that they have gone through things and they're still standing. And I admire those individuals for their strength. And the one thing that I've learned most is most people have this belief that if you are vulnerable, you're weak. And I want to debunk that myth because being vulnerable is the strongest thing you can ever do. Being vulnerable to tell people what it is that you need, what you're going through, and if you need help is very hard, especially in the society we live in because it's so frowned upon. And so I want us to get in a habit of debunking that. Like, that is not how the world's supposed to be. And what I see is everybody is always doing stuff for other people while completely neglecting themselves. And I have been that person. Me and that person had to like have a serious talk because I have spent most of my life always trying to make sure everybody else was good, giving everybody else what they needed. And then I'm over here feeling depleted and my health declined. I was overwhelmed, stressed out, and just miserable for many years. And so I now want to try to start teaching people like, hey, we don't have to live that way. We can be our authentic self and we can learn to say no. And it is okay to say no if it is not for our best and highest good. And that is not being selfish. And if anyone has been around me lately, they know with my grandchildren, I teach them. We don't teach to share in our house because sharing means I'm giving up what I want to make someone else happy, and that leads to people pleasing when we become adults. We're not doing that. You could either wait till she finishes or she can include you and you can play together. But what we're not going to do is give up what we want to make someone else happy because we're not going to repeat that pattern in life. So, today I really want to dig into relationships because what I see so often is when people are in relationships, this can be romantic like relationships, this can be with your children, this could be with your friends, your co-workers, it could be with anybody. We think people think like us, and they don't. We don't know what each person's insecurities are their traumas, or their triggers, or any of that. We just assume that everybody thinks and sees the things that we see, and they don't. And so one of the things that I have been incorporating when I talk to individuals is I ask them, how can I serve and support you best? What do you need from me to feel like I'm hearing you, I'm listening, I'm understanding, and I'm loving and appreciating you? How can I give that to you? Because if you can't answer that question, then what I'm going to do is keep giving it to you the way that I want it to be done, the way it works for me. And what I've realized, that hasn't been working at all, because I'm dealing with what happened to me and the things that go on inside my head and the things that I wish people would have done for me. And so when I ask these questions, most people are like, I don't even know. And so what I've seen is that, and of course I like to talk about me because legally that's probably the only person I can talk about. But if I'm doing something for a person, I'm doing it from my heart, and I'm also doing what I think they need. But here's this person that is standing here saying, well, no one's listening to me, or no one's supporting me, or no one's doing this. And I'm sitting here, and then I feel some kind of way like, did they not see all the stuff I've done for them? Did they not see how I've I've contributed and done this, and how this is my way of supporting them? They couldn't see it because that's not what they needed. So that didn't click to them that that's what I was doing. So then what ends up happening is this person feels like they're all alone and don't have any support. And then I'm over here feeling like, well, I'm doing the best I can, but it's not enough. So then I just quit. And I know this happens a lot because, as again, I have lots of clients and we talk about this quite often. So I know what happens is we're giving them what we think they need, what from our viewpoint, not from their viewpoint. And so this creates a lot of tension and frustration and a lot of feelings of rejection and resentment. And that is never good for any relationships at all. And even the difference between men and women and how men and women operate. Like, how many times, like some of the men I work with, they're like, all of a sudden she just ups and leaves me. There was no warning. But from a woman's viewpoint, this is how women operate, is we we start ticking things. So it's like we'll ask and we'll have a conversation about one thing in particular, and then you don't react or respond to it. So it's like there's a notch that is invisible that men don't see. And so then something else comes up and we start talking and we're telling you that this is an issue or a problem or something we don't like. We talk about it, but then you merge right back into it. So then here goes another notch. And then all of a sudden there's a point where women just finally like, it doesn't matter what I say, they're going to do what they want to do, and it continues to hurt me. So then we just disconnect. And then when we disconnect, you could sneeze wrong and we're out. And then a man standing here like, what just happened? Like, we were just good. And then what I did wasn't even that bad. Like, I didn't even do anything. But for a woman, we've been notching. And that's not something we should always be proud of. But we don't always disclose how we're truly feeling. Like, we just, most of the time, we're doing it out of anger. And what happens when we do something out of anger? The other person shuts down because they're automatically not even listening to what the issue is. They're trying to defend it. So we miss that communication. And so then, you have relationships that are ending that don't need to be ending because there hasn't been the real conversations that need to have, because so many people are so afraid to express what they feel really mean, because probably in life, in childhood, we were taught that our feelings really didn't matter. How many times do you hear a parent say, "Stop crying, there's nothing wrong with you"? Well, that's the only way a child knows how to communicate. So we were shamed to cry out and ask for help, to get attention because we were needing something. We just didn't know how to express it. So as we get older, what do our parents do? They go to the room and hide. They don't let us see them cry. They don't talk to us about their emotions. They don't share these things with us. So often we don't have the emotional intelligence to be able to tell individuals like what is really going on in our life, like how we truly, truly feel. And so part of these series and these daily talks that I want to do is just to teach you how to just learn to open up, to speak what is on your mind, to speak what's on your heart, but then also understand where that's coming from because it typically, and when I teach inner child healing, part of the inner child healing is that until we heal what has happened to our inner child, that inner child still makes decisions in our adult life. So think about if you were 5 years old and you were hurt for some way, shape, or reason by a parent or a teacher or what a sister, brother, or whatever. You're still allowing that 5-year-old child to make decisions in your adult life that creates fear, that creates us not speaking our truth, that can initiate an anger or whatever the case may be. So when we begin to heal our inner child and we tap in to ask ourselves, like, hey, right now I'm feeling angry. What about this situation made me angry? And where is that anger coming from? Because typically when an emotion is and we're triggered, it comes from a past hurt and pain that we've never resolved. And I know that I was the queen of this, and pretty much every client that I work with, they're the queens and kings of it as well, is where we're like, well, our parents did the best they could. They didn't know no better. You're right. They did because most parents are going to try to do the exact opposite that their parents did to them. So we're using that as our baseline, like, well, I'm not going to treat my kids like my parents did me. Not that our parents were wrong, they just didn't know better. So when we go back and we stand back and we look at these things and we understand what and how it's dictating our life, then we can move forward because we've been so accustomed to just pressing it down. Oh, well, it's already happened, or I don't want to open that box because if I go back and revisit that, God knows I'm not going to be able to hold on to it. Like I won't have control. But let me tell you a secret: you don't have control of it now. You don't. That's where addictions come from. That's where loneliness comes from. That's where depression comes from. That's where anxiety comes from. That's where sickness comes from because you're keeping all of this in thinking, well, if I deal with it, I'm opening Pandora's box and all hell's going to break loose. That's not the case. I assure you, because it's coming out every day in your actions and in your fears and in the things that you do and in your relationships. And then you feel like no one sees you, hears you, understands. But the thing is, you don't hear you. You don't understand you. You don't love you. You're not listening to you. You're listening to all of the pain and the trauma and all the things that you're endured talk to you. That's what you're listening and is dictating your life. Because you, as an individual and as a soul, is never going to say things negative about you. You're not going to talk bad about yourself. You're going to appreciate and love yourself. So, closing up on today's talk, because I'm going to try to keep these about 20 minutes or less, is what I want you to do is I want you to take a moment and every time you're talking negative to yourself, stop it. Because if people were talking to the people that you love the way you talk to yourself, what would you do? You would probably catch a case. So if you're not going to allow other people to talk to people that you love and care about you, then you don't need to talk to yourself like that. So I want you to pay attention to these things that are being said in your head. Like, and I want you to reshift it. Talk positive about yourself. Find one thing to do a day that makes you happy. And when you're feeling something, when you're feeling sad, or when you're feeling depressed, or when you're feeling angry or anxious or frustrated, stop for a second. Take in some deep breaths. Just stop for a moment. Feel the emotion. Just let it flow through you. Okay? Just let it flow through. Don't act on it. Just stay there for a moment and just let it flow through. Because what ends up happening is within a minute or two, that feeling leaves. And the way I like to explain it to my clients is that when an animal almost gets hit and they get scared, you'll see them run and then you'll see them stop and they'll shake it out. They're shaking out the emotion and they never remember that even happened. It's gone. Now, we as adults, we have a memory, so we remember it. However, if we just let it process through, we're not holding on to it. And if we don't hold on to it and we just start letting things flow through, then you start to let in the happiness, you start to let in the joy. But the problem is, we're so full of all of the pain and the hurt and the trauma that we have no room for happiness and joy and peace. And so, if we want to establish our peace, we have to start unpacking that box that we've been so scared to unpack. Because here's the thing, you already survived it, you already went through the worst part of it. Revisiting it is not the worst part of it. Because when you're revisiting it with compassion. And we're going to look at those situations and see how it made us who we are today, how we navigated from that, how those things gave us strength. We're looking at it how, and I know a lot of people always tell me, like, that I can't look back at that and see how it benefited me, but we can, because we're looking at it in a different perspective. There are things that I've gone through that I now look back and say, okay, from an observation, I'm looking at the situation and I see how it created this part of me, how I'm aware of these things now. But I would have never known those things if I didn't go back and look at the situation to see how it truly did benefit me. Now, that's not diminishing the pain and the suffering and all of that. That's two different things. However, if we can shine light on it and heal it, then it no longer controls us. All right. So I'm sending this message to you all with love and light. And I thank you for hanging out with me today. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Dr. Toya. I am a holistic therapist, a hypnotherapist. I am also a spiritual counselor and healer. And I absolutely love living life. I love teaching people. I love helping people heal. And I just love being me. So I want all of you to learn to love to be you. And I will see all of you tomorrow.